Hello everybody, my name's John Thornhill. I'm the producer on Dark Age of Camelot, and welcome to the Class Balance slash Everything Else announcement podcast. I'm joined today by our knights Boxy and Koei, and we're just going to be kind of going through... Oops, gotta mute this guy, the Twitch stream. So I'm joined here by knights Boxy and Koei, and we'll be discussing the upcoming class balance ideas and changes and what our plans are, and then also, trying to garner your feedback on what we're thinking and what else you guys are thinking about that maybe differs from what we are. And so Boxy and Koei are going to help me keep on task and keep on subject, and then also ask for clarity and ask your questions as well from the Twitch chat. So just ask away whenever you guys want to. Boxy, Koei, you guys want to say hi?
Hello.
Hey everyone.
So first of all, this is the culmination podcast for the all of the class balance podcasts we've been having going on since February. Thank you guys so much for participating in those. The feedback has been fantastic. We have a lot of ideas that we've shamelessly ripped from those podcasts that will make it into the game. We have been planning this kind of class balance patch for a while, and so maybe 2 years since the last one really came along. Even back to 1.114 was really the last major one that was done back when Mythic ran the game. So this patch is looking at kind of really shifting the focus of the game away from some of the stuff that's evolved in the past intervening years. So yeah, thank you guys for the podcast, and hopefully you like what we're planning. So just to start out, to get some overview of kind of where we're looking for class balance. I'm just going to jump right in, and then we'll kind of go through each class. So the overall focus that we're thinking about for this patch is to focus on helping classes that have had roles supplanted by like potions, items, mounts as the game's evolved. Support song classes, chant classes for the most part. Focus on helping those classes kind of refine themselves in the game, give them a defined role again, and we're going to focus on helping melee become better at reaching their targets and doing damage when they get there, but maybe not necessarily being able to just chain snare their target when they're there and keeping the caster locked up. So maybe they'll get like the stuns like they have, they'll keep those, but maybe lose some snares for melee DPS, that kind of stuff. And then maybe looking at changing some CL disease mechanics so that melee is meleeing and not casting. We're going to focus on getting rid of a lot of the passive / maybe boring abilities like pulses and chants and resist buffs. Not getting rid of them, but kind of moving away from them being the sole reason classes are grouped. So, a friar might get grouped right now because it just brings to the table resist buffs. And that's not really fun for the friar, and it's not maybe fun for the group. It's useful to the group, but it's not really the direction we want. So we want to have active kind of buff abilities, debuff abilities, negative effects you can put on people that are short duration, kind of 1 minute to 3 minute cooldown kind of stuff, but are much more active in gameplay rather than passive gameplay. Another focus is going to be assassins and archers. We want to give them more clearly defined roles. Still let them be solo experts or very good at solo, just because that's how stealth will work and does work and has worked, but also let them do some stuff in groups now. We're going to focus on, and we'll get into the details of all this later on, but focus on giving class abilities to help counter a lot of the itemization changes. One idea is something like a cure for the fumble / Zoe Bracer kind of bedazzling things. Another idea is maybe some dispels for ablatives, absorb buffs, that kind of stuff. And then we want to also, while we're doing all of these things, keep the realms unique and kind of refocus on that a little bit, because there's a lot of mirrored abilities and parity now, which makes for maybe an overall more balanced game, but maybe not quite as fun as we'd want it to be. So yeah, those are the kind of the six just main focuses and main goals of our class balance patch. And then yeah, so Boxy or Koei, you guys have any questions so far?
No, I just wanted to say though that I love that the number one, the point you made about not having too many mirror classes and mirror abilities. That is so huge. I've heard a lot of people talk about that, say the game's getting way too homogenized among the three realms. And yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say I really like that. I'm glad that you guys are keeping that at the forefront of your minds.
Yeah, so many questions here, but honestly, I'd kind of like you to get more into the nitty-gritty, and maybe some of this stuff will get flushed out.
Yeah, sure, certainly. So yeah, before we get into the absolute nitty-gritty, let's talk about some more kind of major sweeping changes rather than class-specific stuff. So one idea we'd like to look at, and this ties into the overall, helping melee reach their targets. And this is a CC change idea. Right now, with the itemization and 25% duration in a lot of players' templates, especially single target CC is becoming an issue where even Det 9 classes are sitting there for upwards of 30 seconds sometimes, and if they're debuff CC'd, it's even a minute almost still. So we want to get away from that a little bit and make it not quite as powerful. We're not trying to reduce CC to the point where it's useless, but maybe like a 20 to 30% reduction in just the baseline mez root durations for single target only. AoE has drop off, so we're not too concerned about the overall duration on that. So that's something that will still allow skill groups to debuff for their CC duration. But yeah, let melee classes that aren't maybe stoicism classes reach their target a little bit more often and participate more in their melee role rather than casting Seal Disease. Another idea is looking at the melee styles themselves. We want to kind of get away from the anytime style, which was a change made several years ago, probably 10 years ago now. Where the anytime is the best style for every class, or basically the best style for every class, and you just have to spam that one style. We'd rather have the anytime be decent, but not the best, and shift back towards melee DPS at least, using positionals to disable their target, aka a stun, and then have follow-ups to that stun, or other follow-up style chains that do the bulk of the damage. But while, they're not the casters stun immune and they're running around and they're not being snared, we don't want the melee DPS to be able to just kill them. Well, they can kill them, but we don't want them to just kill them very easily. And again, this is just big picture stuff. So like, once you guys get the details, it won't be hopefully too scary if this is sounding scary to you so far. We want to keep stuns. Like I said, let's see. We want to bring back peel tanks. I think that's an important part of the game that's kind of lost its way a little bit because of that single target duration CC being so effective. You don't really need a snare tank in there combating tanks, and that's really what should be the counter to a bunch of melees. It shouldn't be more casters. It should be more tanks.
And then you have bodyguard to factor in there as well as something that's, I guess, that can go into the peel tank role, but it just seems like it's a much less active style of play. Back in the day when tanks would have to get those positional styles off, those positional stuns off, or whatever they had in order to free up the casters and not just hit their bodyguard macro and stand still.
Yeah, that's a good point, and a lot of the class ideas that we have will help some of those melee DPS interrupt through bodyguard. We're not sure we want to change bodyguard quite yet. There's potential there for sure, but we're kind of operating around the idea that wouldn't change for now. But yeah, that's a valid point for sure. So the other kind of general thing is looking at, again, this ties back into a more active approach to class balance or more active approach to playing classes more than providing passive abilities that groups want. So like buffing classes, right now we'll still keep all of the buffs they have. We're not going to take away, stat buffs or anything like that. They're still going to keep shears. They're still going to be the same class basically, except that they're going to have more abilities that are short duration buffs, like 10 to 20 seconds. But are on a 60-second or 3-minute cooldown that are powerful. So like an example of that for a shaman would be something like a damage shield, where the damage shield is going to provide upwards of 300% back to the people hitting the target of the shaman's buff. So a tank train is on, a healer, and you put the damage shield buff up for 10 seconds. That tank train, if they stay on that healer, might die. So kind of things like that are more active and just can provide some more counterplay and reactionary play. Same thing with Cleric and Druid, although since they have a really robust kind of mending spec, we're not going to give them as many buffs as Shaman. I think the Shaman are hurting a lot more. Maybe for Cleric and Druid, we're tossing around ideas, kind of riffing on grapple. Not the existing grapple, but kind of grapple that doesn't maybe have melee immunity, but has spell immunity, doesn't stun for as long, that kind of stuff. And then also we'll give each of those 3 buffing classes one major kind of brand new, I don't want to say I win button, but very powerful ability that is another short duration single target buff that can be cast on their realmates. The Shaman we're planning on giving them a reset cooldown ability, which will reset all cooldowns, all non-realm ability and non-item timer cooldowns on a realmate. So if you want to reset healer's Zephyr or healer's instant heal, you can do that. It'll be up, right now we're thinking about every 15 minutes. Very kind of important ability to group a shaman for, but not up all the time or anything like that. For clerics, we would want to, and these would be in high augmentation spec, or enhancement spec, or nurture spec. For clerics, you'd give them a 10-second mastery of concentration single target buff they can place on anybody in their group, just single target. It would be 100% effectiveness though, so pretty powerful. And then for druids, we would give a single target purge that could be used on anybody in their group, and it can be used on themselves if they're rooted. Obviously, if any of those 3 classes are stunned or mez, they can't cast that. Any reactions so far?
I mean,
Well,
this is
I've got
really
2
interesting
questions.
stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, the damage shield, the feedback 300%. Are we talking caster or just melee damage?
It would be both.
Is there any sort of
Potentially.
way?
I mean,
Yeah.
we can do just melee, and we can do just spell, and we can do both. So there's, I think probably for that one specifically it'll be just melee, but we can do all 3. And it wouldn't be just that one. It would be like
Okay.
a damage buff bonus. It would be. Let me just bring up real quick my notes for the shaman. Like kind of like a Bane Spike type buff, but much more powerful Bane Spike. A heal effectiveness buff on the target, so heals cast on that target are 200 something more effective. Change the damage absorbed shell that shamans and clerics and druids already get, but allow the target to move and enter combat. Somebody from a ram every once in a while, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's workarounds to those little specific issues. Like, okay, if someone's being basically invulnerable on a ram, then maybe just don't make
The realm's ability to maybe disrupt that ram from swinging.
Yeah, that's a good question. We do have plans to up like oil damage, and maybe that's something that we want to revisit in another way. Like we introduce an ability, maybe not this patch, but in subsequent patches that can remove somebody from a ram every once in a while, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's workarounds to those little specific issues. Like, okay, if someone's being basically invulnerable on a ram, then maybe just don't make the ability work when they're riding on siege, things like that. But I just wanted to say that I think this is the idea of like these little short duration buffs is the first I've heard of it, and it's very, very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of different directions you could take that in. The damage shield, mock, purge, as you said, but then also things like boosting spell damage or melee damage for like a few seconds. On like a long timer when you know that you need to drop a target right now. Stuff like that. It's like, I mean, there's a lot of different directions you can go, and it sounds interesting, so I'm into it.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you said exactly what maybe some abilities will be. We'll get to them later on for non-support classes. So, yeah. I mean, this is kind of something we want to do for the game as a whole, not just support classes. Continuing on with the support though, let's just keep diving into the classes. Shaman, Warden, Friar are kind of similar in a way. The buffing classes are similar. Shaman, Cleric, Druid for the buffing reasons and needing to have some more active abilities to go with. But for Shaman, Warden, Friar, they're different in a way that they are secondary healers. The Warden, Friar especially are even almost primary healers nowadays. And so for their mending lines, we're looking at giving them kind of some new cures as counters to, again, like those item changes we've had that have come in and maybe been powerful and taken away from some classes like Fumble or Bedazzling, which is like the Zobracer debuff that helps you either miscast or miss your swings. Those kind of cures for that stuff, maybe even possibly, we're not planning on this now, but depending on feedback or player choice, we could give them, debuff, stat debuff cures. Basically anything, really. We could cure anything. So that's kind of one path we can go with Warden, Friar, Shaman, and then also for staff friars. Well, before we get to that, Warden, Friar would also be given pulsing poison and disease cures, and hopefully you'll see why we would want to do that. Continuing on, Shaman I think already have it. If they don't, we'd give them that too. So for another thing for Cave Shaman specifically would be that Cave Shaman right now are pretty underpowered. They've just kind of fallen by the wayside. They were a good class maybe back in the day, but now there's no real reason to spec Cave. We want to make it an option. Obviously, augmentation is going to be pretty powerful now, so that's probably going to be the role most Shamans go in groups. But Cave Shaman will now be able to get kind of those short duration negative kind of effects they can cast on enemy players. And then we're also going to give Cave Shamans a Midgard only climb wall ability that they can cast, like a buff that they can cast on any class that will let them climb walls. That'll be on a very long 15-minute timer. And this is to help balance the idea that Hibernia and Albion can have 3 climb wall classes, Midgard only gets 2. And with it on Cave Shamans, it shouldn't be too prevalent, but it'll be a powerful ability Shamans will bring as well if they want to go Cave and keep taking spec. Warden, Friar. For the staff Friar, we're looking at kind of moving away from the very solo-centered heal proc stuff and moving towards more like a Veilwalker style utility, high damage type procs at very high staff specs. So not, you couldn't be a heal Friar and then also have these kind of things, but we're thinking about that kind of a role for a staff Friar. And then the Warden is just, they're in a pretty good spot right now as a heal Warden, but we also want to make that melee Warden viable. I don't know if we want to increase damage, but we might want to incentivize maybe going the peel spec more often, especially with all of the other melee changes we're thinking about. So that's kind of the big picture for Shaman, Warden, Friar, and the buffing classes. So anything else?
Well, there's an immense amount of Twitch chat about specifically the Shaman wall climb ability. I'm wondering, is this going to have any classes that aren't, you're not going to be able to send over a healer, or is it anything?
Right now it's anything, but I mean this is all stuff that's up in the air, so it all depends on your feedback. Like we don't have to do any of this, but it's an idea that would help kind of make it unique. Like Midgard is kind of different in the keep taking situation. They don't get a class like Animus that can defend a keep wall. They're just pet spam that can take down a door really fast. And so I think Midgard's kind of uniquely positioned, excuse me, to have something like that and it not be too crazy. I'm reading the Twitch chat too, and it seems like that it's a very unpopular decision. Which, all right, I mean maybe we don't do it then, but I think for keep sieges in general, we should make them more about combat and less about melee standing around waiting for the door to fall and that kind of stuff. But we can get into that later. Unless you guys want to talk about it now, we can talk about it now.
I gotta say I'm a little overwhelmed and frankly a little bit surprised that so many people are against the Cave Shaman climb wall thing. I mean, I've heard time and time again people bemoaning the state of siege warfare now and saying, oh, it's just, taking undefended keeps and all this stuff. And I think any abilities that you can use to get people into combat with each other would be a good thing. And I know you guys have talked about what's it called? Redefining siege mechanics in general with the General Siege Warfare podcast. And I don't think writing off more keep defense penetration in terms of just not sitting on a door, sitting on a treb, and just hammering a wall over and over again. Just like, to me, it seems like an idea we shouldn't write off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ideas in the pipeline for keep sieges, and maybe we wait until that kind of stuff's in, until we give a class another climb wall ability or something, or we do it and we see how it works. I mean, there's tons of little options there. But yeah, I mean, we want players to fight other players and not, hole up in a keep and not fight, or have a situation where one realm can't compete in the attacking of a keep, but they can. There's a ton of different variables we could mess with on that regard. Climb walls could be the right way or the wrong way.
And John, I think we're seeing a lot of reaction to this because really it's the first really new idea. I'm guessing that as this podcast progresses, people will sort of digest all of the changes together.
They would be a greater mind than I if they can digest all of the changes together while we're in real time. So yeah, but I mean, exactly. There are going to be other things that will come up that they might go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And that's our hope. And again, some of these are ideas that we're pretty sure about, and a lot of them are, we want your feedback. They're just ideas. We're not necessarily going to do them, but what do you guys think about this? And then once we get the patch notes out in a couple, hopefully a couple weeks to Pendragon, you guys can test things and kind of see the whole thing and exactly what's going in all at once. But this is really a teaser, but I'm going to give you guys as much information up front now as I can because we have a lot of it ready to talk about. All right, you guys ready to talk about stealth?
Yes.
All right, so the first change was stealth, and this is really the only sweeping change with stealth specifically, is we want to remove the minimum range from being away from enemy targets to be able to stealth. So the only thing preventing you from stealthing at any time will be, are you in combat or not? Which has some changes, but for the most part in RBR it shouldn't affect that much. I mean, maybe some assassins can kite a little bit better after they've already opened an attack and snare, and then they run away and they can re-stealth easier, but it shouldn't really do too much. It just kind of makes stealth usable. Again, for stealth, one of the goals is to make stealthers still be able to do their current roles, although I'll talk a little bit about how they're shifting, and then B, group. And if you're in a group fight and you want to stealth and there's a guy next to you, you can't. That is a mechanic that needs to be changed. So let me just give you guys the outline for the vision of assassins and archers. We want to get assassins back to being a anti-visible assassin alpha strike class. We turn it to its roots. I guess you could call them, we want to make them more like ninjas and less like whatever they are now, which is kind of, they're kind of lost right now. They don't have a good role. They can take out some visible classes, but for the most part, they're just good at taking out assassins right now, and that's the opposite thing that we want for assassins. We want assassins to be good at taking out casters. We want assassins to be good about taking out anything that they can surprise, and then also in groups to be really high melee DPS glass cannons.
When you say groups,
go ahead.
When you say groups, you're talking about visible groups?
Yes.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Interesting.
So a lot of these changes are, we don't want to ruin the idea that a stealther can be a solo effective player. The nature of stealth is that they're always going to be really effective solo, and we're not going to try to, water them down to the point where they're not good solo. They're going to be good solo. We want them to be good solo, but there's no reason why stealth can't work in a group. We can give, and the main reason that it doesn't work right now is for mechanical reasons, like removing the minimum range. You can actually re-stealth in the middle of a group fight. And then the second thing is like movement, being able to be mobile while stealthed. And those are the two biggest kind of reasons why I think stealthers don't work right now. And so in that vein, well, yeah, I'll go ahead and run down the assassins, and then we'll talk about archers. We're going to give assassins more spec points. We're going to really incentivize stealthers to spec all the way to 50 in stealth. And we're going to do that by giving them a buff. We're going to remove Mastery of Stealth from their realm abilities. We're going to give them a buff in stealth spec that will increase your ability to detect other stealthers, so just like Mastery of Stealth, and then increase your ability to move while stealth. But the increase to move while stealth will be to 100% movement speed.
So that would be a passive thing or like an active buff?
The way the nature of the buff will be, it'll be an active toggle, but once it's active, it'll be up forever. It'll be a passive bonus basically.
I see, so kind of like camouflage in that regard.
Stealth. Yes, except there's no cooldown on it. It's just up.
Gotcha.
So stealthers will get 2.7 spec points for Shadow Blades and Nightshades, and 2.8 spec points for Infiltrators. We're going to change Envenom so that there's no more weapon swapping. Or we would like to change Envenom so that there's no more weapon swapping. And to do that, we would give offensive procs, and then combine a lot of the existing poisons down into 3 major offensive procs. And they would be all in the same timer, so you would have a dot proc that casts 2 dots instead of just 1 dot for Life Bane plus the other dot's damage, so we wouldn't be nerfing the damage. We would have another poison that gives weapon skill, con, dex, and strength stat debuffs all in one. We'd have another proc that gives disease and a melee resist debuff all in one. And those would be your 3 kind of like rotational poison procs, and then we would also have a snare proc that's just a snare, but it acts like pin, the pin style, where it doesn't break on damage and is like a 10-second duration. And then we'd have the Mez poison would be changed to a Mez proc. Now, these procs will be changed so that they can't be resisted, and they will last the full duration. So a 20-second dot will last 20 seconds, and it will always apply. The catch is that these poison procs will all share the same timer, so that's 10 seconds. You've cast your double dot, it's up, it lasts forever. Your swings will always proc that poison proc. And then once it's up, you can't reapply the poison proc on the same target, so you're going to want to put another proc up. But that being able to put that other proc up will be on a 10-second cooldown, so you won't be able to just constantly switch back and forth. You'll have to kind of strategically place your poisons, but the poisons will be much more powerful as a whole. In Critical Strike, again, this is going back to making them more of an Alpha Strike class. We're going to increase perf damage a little bit. We're going to change Leaper's startup style to Pincer, which is the side style. And we're going to give Pincer a stun, so that players can get away from having to have multiple style lines, like dual wield or left axe styles on their bar. They can basically just stick to crit strike styles. And then also up the damage a little bit on basically all of them, and then make the called shots. If they want to forego Envenom, they can go to called shots, and we'll make them a little bit easier to use. And then also perf will give you that armor wither immediately when you land the perf, so you can go immediately into called shots. So I got more, but let's stop there and see what you guys want to ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to digest. I like any changes that make Envenom swapping easier. I mean, I've said that before. I'll say it again. I like that a lot. I like these ideas. One clarification I did have is, or I did want is it going to be 1 proc per weapon, or just 1 proc up at any time, period?
1 proc up at any time, period. So both weapons will proc. So if you miss though on your main hand and you land your dual wield, your left hand, it'll still land the proc. So that's a change. But yeah, it'll just be 2 swings. 1 swing, 2 weapons, 1 proc.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, I also see people are concerned in Twitch chat about the alchemy trade skill and making poisons. And is there any plans to sort of compensate them for the loss of, not making any more specialty poisons like the hasty buff and stuff like that?
You'll be able to sell the haste. You'll be able to sell all the poisons you've crafted back for the price that they cost to craft. And we have a lot of other great things now. Alchemy is not struggling because it doesn't. Because it's going to lose poisons. There's tons of other things in alchemy to craft. And then we also actually have some crafting changes upcoming that I'll talk about later on in the podcast to hopefully offset that even more.
Sweet.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, so far I really like that it's going to help the new returning players sort of actually maybe be able to compete the learning curve there. But I'm wondering, I guess, are you going to talk about CD, left axe, anything here?
In what way?
Oh, are there any changes planned?
Oh yeah, sorry, did I cut out when I was talking about critical strike? Basically, we would change perf to be a little bit higher damage. We'd add an armor wither to perf, so you would be able to go into the called shots if you wanted to spec that high into CS. We're going to change leaper to follow up pincer, the side style, and then we're going to change pincer to land a 4-second stun. So you don't have to use left axe styles. You can just use your crit strike styles, and they have everything that left axe has. And I think that means imps also get a side stun now. And this helps them in groups, right? Like they can use that side style when they're on a target and do some damage while they're visible without having to always re-stealth in the middle of a visible group fight. Okay, and we have assassins just about done, so we'll showcase that a little later on in the podcast, kind of at the end. Haven't even gotten to the best part about it yet. So in balancing the assassins, imps right now and nightshades, well, I would say nightshades are probably the top of the heap because of the nightshade spec line. And so we'd like to bring imps and shadowblades a little bit up and shadowblades even more. So we're going to give all stealthers will lose Mastery of Stealth. They will lose Vanish, but they will get Vanish for free as RAs. They will get Det. They will get the RA Strike Prediction, which gives a evade buff to the group, although it doesn't stack with existing evade bonuses if the user has them already. So it's just a kind of like a buff for like healers and casters and stuff to evade. Infiltrators and Shadowblades will get access to Mastery of Magery and Wild Power RAs. And then we'll probably have to end up nerfing Viper's damage increase a little bit just because of how powerful the double dot poison is. We're also going to, in helping the Shadowblades out even more, probably increase their rank 5 delve a little bit to make it a little bit more short duration, higher heal amounts. And then also we're looking at giving Shadowblades a throw weapon utility functionality in their stealth spec. So right now we're looking at giving them like two throw weapon abilities that will have different uses and different strategies behind them. And then the last thing that we're giving stealthers, which is probably the biggest thing, is at 50 stealth spec, they're going to get a reimagined Shadow Strike ability called Blur, which will be on a 90-second cooldown, so like charge, that will instantly teleport them to a target. And does no damage, it just instantly teleports them to a target. It can be used on friendly targets or enemy targets. And so in a group fight, if you want to get away or catch a guy, you can blur to them and you'll be right on them.
That's an idea I love. I love that idea 100%. I think it'll be really interesting to see how all of this comes together. Obviously, before any of this even makes it to Pendragon, there's going to be a lot of fine-tuning, I'm assuming. But then once it gets there, I am so excited to try that out.
Yeah, I mean, we've been playing around with it on the internal server, and you'll see it in action actually later on in the podcast. It's really fun, and it's really useful, but it's just landing you on the player. So there's tons of options. We have some Z-axis, limitations, so you can't just like jump up onto a keep wall from down below and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a really fun ability. All right, so archers, assassins are now the kind of anti-visible, uh, crit strike, alpha strike type class. A little bit more group utility for assassins. Archers are going to be the anti-assassin class. They're the trackers, right? They're the one class that can see the assassin. The assassin, sorry guys, I'm dealing with a head cold. I'm coughing a little bit. The assassin won't be nearly as good at finding other stealthers anymore. Their detection buff they're going to get won't be as good as Mastery of Stealth's current detection. So archers will actually see stealthers before assassins see them now. We're going to try to emphasize archers to have more bow utility shots and emphasize their bow spec more than their melee spec, which might mean reducing a little bit of the melee spec for rangers and possibly hunters. And make bow usable, so you can kite with your bow out. You can kite. You can do some more things with that. We're not really ready to talk about the specifics yet, but that's kind of the large big picture for them. And then the last thing is giving them a kind of like a track ability where they can go still and it's focus and they can't do anything else. They can't attack and they can't move, but it lets them do an even larger radius detection ability. So if they want to just run up to a Malgate and then just stop and see what's there, they can do that, but they can't just plink some guy from across the from 1,000 radius away or whatever. They have to get to within normal stealth detection radius with Mastery of Stealth. Any questions there?
It's a pretty dramatic role change. I think it could work. Uh, it's just something I need to ruminate on for a little bit. I'm very much into the idea, as Afflian said in chat, of checks and balances, right? There are certain classes that should counter rapidity in selecting targets. That was the assassin was sort of his own worst enemy. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But overall, I think it's a pretty sweet idea.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean like that archers are going to just kill every assassin they encounter. It just means that they're going to detect them.
Just saying, okay, well now we have this hard counter, whereas before we didn't really have any. Like our hard counter was our own stupidity in selecting targets. That was the assassin was sort of his own worst enemy. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But overall, I think it's a pretty sweet idea.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean like that archers are going to just kill every assassin they encounter. It just means that they're going to detect them easier. So maybe they get the jump on them. But remember, assassins get blur and they can just jump to the archer. So if we let them see each other at the same range, you can't really have that be balanced. If the archer gets to attack you from a further range, but you get to jump at them from the same range, it doesn't work.
Okay, so yeah, what I was So when you said assassin is the anti-archer, it was what my mind immediately jumped to. Was like, oh, they're going to be able to beat them in like a 1v1 fight. But I see what you're going for now. Yeah, I like that a lot more.
Yeah, it's more about just being able to find the stealthers. That's what archers are going to be good at. They're also going to get some group utility, shots. So they're not going to just be good at killing assassins. They're not going to be just good at killing 1v1 fights and that kind of stuff. We're also going to look at maybe tweaking point blank shot so that it's not spammable, which is a big archer ability right now. You can kind of just round up 3 archers and pop one target and surround them and go to town from close range. We want to make that more of a escape ability. So if you fire the PB, it's an instant cast, but it pops up a 30-second PBT on you. So you're going to be better in melee or be able to take more melee damage and maybe get away. So you can use your bow, because that's what we want the class to do, is to be a range class.
Well, I'm definitely seeing a lot of excitement in Twitch chat, so hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. PB spam was like the anytime spam of archers. It's just it's boring after a while. There's no flavor there.
Yeah, and so in tandem with that, we would also look at reducing the cast time on the elemental, the magic shots, so they're a little bit more functional, and you can use them in conjunction with resist debuffs in groups, that kind of stuff. Maybe increasing the damage on standard shot a little bit, giving them anti-caster shots like a cast speed debuff shot, that kind of stuff.
Cool. Well, I really like the way these stealth changes are sounding. I mean, it's a lot of change, but I think they're good changes. You know,
Awesome.
anytime there's like dramatic reworks, you know, there's going to be people that are for it or against it. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I've played this my whole life. You know, I love this class and it's getting like a redesign. But you know, if it's a good change, then if it's good for the health of the game as a whole, then I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it just means that when people log in stealthers, they're like Cody was saying, there's not a huge skill cap on assassins with swapping weapons and all that stuff, and you can just kind of jump in and play. And then archers, you know, they need to be more effective by themselves than they are probably right now, and then also they need to be better with their bows, both in group and by themselves.
Cool.
All right, so that's basically the stealth stuff. Move on to just I'm just going to kind of jump around. I made a list and I did it in order that I was thinking of it. So, well, writing it down in order that I was thinking of each class. So it's going to kind of jump around a little bit, but that'll hopefully keep it balanced and not too caster centric or melee centric or whatever. So animist, we going back to the kind of overall points, we want to identify and focus on classes that have kind of been hurting for a little while now, as well as classes that just maybe don't have a defined role. The ARB spec for Animalist, Arboreal spec for Animist is pretty good. It's a damage spec. It's got some pretty good stuff in it already, but the creeping spec is really lacking. Verdant spec could probably use a little bit of buffs, but we're not really looking at changing that right now, just because it does have its use in PvE and even in like, keep sieges and stuff like that. But creep spec really doesn't have much going for it right now, and so we're looking at giving it a lower delve matter damage bomber. So not nearly as good as the arboreal damage bomber, but still decent. A new FNF, Fire and Forget shroom that heals targets, single target. So you can kind of set up a shroom field that starts healing. It's not going to be a huge heal, but decent heals. And then another FNF that casts disease. And then we'll remove the DD FNF from creeping and actually add that to ARB spec. And then we'll give creeping spec a bolt range AoE root, or make their existing AoE root bolt range, and then they'll keep their AF debuff. And then at 50 creeping, we'll give them kind of a super powered Fire and Forget heal shroom that heals for a little bit more than the other ones, and it will be PB-AoE.
Nice. I like the sound of that.
Just out of curiosity, are any other classes going to get this bolt range route?
Yes. We'll give one to each realm. Technically, Midgard has one with the Warlock, which I think you brought up on internal forums. But we might also give it to Rune Masters as well. We're still kind of deciding on that, but I think it makes sense to have it on the RM, and the other one will be most likely the Thurgist or the Wizard.
There's a lot of 8-man happiness going on right now in Twitch.
Yeah, I'm seeing the Twitch chat. Yeah, it's people are loving that.
All right, so yeah, speaking of Rune Masters, they're in a pretty good spot as well. I think the only real thing is that AoE root and suppression, possibly. And then another one would be an actual spec nuke in rune carving, energy damage. So there's some more synergy there with Spirit Masters that gives Spirit Masters a energy. Spirit Masters have an energy debuff, and Rune Masters get a spec energy DD that they can use in conjunction with Thanes or other just different types of group makeups. And it also makes that Rune Master rune carving a little bit more similar to maybe like the Wizard Fire spec, although it won't have a debuff attached to it or anything like that. All right, moving on. Banshees. A lot of changes to the Banshee. It's a very underperforming class. Although I say a lot of changes, but we're probably going to leave Spectral Guard alone. It's a pretty solid class, and that baseline DD is just really good. So we're pretty happy with that as is. And it lets the Banshee spec, full into Phantasmal Wail or Ethereal Shriek, and then sub-spec into Spectral Guard and be pretty solid. So for Phantasmal Wail, we're going to give them a damage plus body resist. We're going to change the damage plus body resist nuke to be AoE, and remove. We're going to change the damage plus dex quick debuff so that it doesn't have a dex quick debuff. It has a body resist debuff, and it's going to be AoE. We'll give them a. They have the uninterruptible PBAoE already. They have the uninterruptible root already. We'll keep those. And then we're going to give them single target shears, stat shears, not the AoE red shears, but just the yellow single target shears. And then at 50, they'll get a castable 4-second cast, 4 or 5-second cast random buff shear. So it'll be a very unique class. And then Ethereal Shriek, we're going to make that into a kind of a more AoE DD class. So they're gonna be actually change the cold damage, the Ethereal Shriek, AoE Bolt, AoE Nuke, and then they're gonna get a 199 Delve single target cold nuke, and then they're gonna get a straight up AoE Dex Quick debuff, just like Sorks or Eldritches and all that kind of stuff. And then they're at 50 ES spec, they'll get a Pet Scare. It's a little bit less radius than the master level Pet Scare, but that'll replace the fear / guard charm thing that they have now. All right, I'm going to keep going if there's nothing else, if no comments want to be made.
No, I mean, I'd be honest with you, Banshee is probably the class I have the least experience playing in Dark Age, so I'm just not a good person to comment on it. But I mean, they are definitely underrepresented, and a lot of that has to do with some of the problems that you described. So hopefully, get some meaningful changes that address those problems. I don't know. Don't really have anything to say about it.
I think the keep defense changes will be interesting, and we'll see how that goes.
All right, Warlocks. We're pretty happy with Curse Locks as they are, and I think Hex Locks could probably use some work, but we're actually looking at making other classes synergize better with Hex Locks, so we're not going to leave that pretty much alone. However, Witchcraft, I think we missed the boat on the Witchcraft revamp a few years ago with specifically just Witchcraft. It's a heal / kind of AF debuff spec. It's kind of like creeping for Animus. It doesn't really have a defined role. And so we're going to pretty much keep everything that's there now, and then we're going to add a new dot mechanic, a new single target dot mechanic, where there are 4 dots. The first one is instant, the second one is casted and it's low damage, the third one is medium damage casted, and the fourth one is high damage casted. And you have to cast them in order. So you can't cast the second low damage casted dot unless the instant dot is on your target, and you can't cast the third medium damage dot unless the instant and low damage are on your target, and you can't cast the third very high damage dot unless all 3 of those previous dots are still on your target. So dot cures will be a counter to it, but once you get all 4 of those dots on there, that target is really going to be taking some damage because they all stack. And that 4th dot, even if you cure all 4 dots, that 4th dot will land a very high boom, like DD onto the target, talking like upwards of 600 damage after resist and everything like that.
What kind of cast speed are you thinking, John, for that?
Yeah, because it's so many casts to get off, you mean? Or because it sounds really powerful?
Well, I'm thinking it's like ramp damage, compare it maybe to a tick, but obviously a tick takes a good 10 seconds or so before really you need to worry about it.
Right, so yeah, the dots are going to probably be pretty quick cast themselves, but since they can be cured, and because it takes each one to be cast on before, I mean there's tons of potential to get interrupted midway through the chain, all that stuff. One or 2 of those dots will be secondary spells so that you can cast them with the UI primer in Hex, but this isn't Witchcraft, so you're only going to have the powerless primer and a pretty low delve UI primer, which means the effectiveness of these won't be great if you're using that. But it'll probably be around 2 to 3 seconds per dot. to cast, and then they'll last 20 to 30 seconds.
I mean,
With the last one lasting like 10 seconds.
It's an innovative idea. My problem with it is this: if we're going the route of introducing the pulsing spell cure to the other classes, like you said earlier in the podcast, like isn't that going to just 100% nullify this entire new source of DPS?
We actually added those in after making the Warlock because we thought the Warlock was too powerful. In that, even if you cure the high damage one, if it gets on there, that DD still goes off. And because there's no group cure poison, if the Warlock gets starts getting dots off on one or two classes and then kind of works its way around back to the other classes, because the first 3 dots last 30 seconds, you're going to get really behind the 8 ball on curing dots.
It's an interesting way to spread damage around for sure. That's just another thing I have to think about. Yeah. I mean, it sounds interesting. I just don't know how effective it would be as a change. I mean, I think dots in general have kind of fallen by the wayside, and a lot of that has to do with poison cures and things on rings and bracers and stuff that we have now, and it's sort of just taking all that time to do damage might not necessarily be the best solution. But at the same time, Warlock has historically been a big front load class, so having this kind of long drawn out DPS could also be an interesting complement to that playstyle as well.
Yeah, and remember they have Curse Spec that's still pretty solid, and Hex Spec might have some more synergy with other classes now in Midgard. So this is just a different take, and they still get heals, so they'll be pretty beefy. They'll be able to kind of take damage and be frontline and kind of take that time to get those dots out. And then they have the AFD buff, which is going to be useful for tank groups. So Bone Dancer, pretty much leaving Dark and Suppression alone for now. We might look at maybe looking at the life tap and suppression reuse timer. We'll see. We're just going to look at Bone Army right now because that spec's not used at all, really. It's kind of like creeping and witchcraft and warlocks. And it's really kind of a simple change, and we're just going to see how this works, see if this makes sense. We're going to, first of all, change the totem, because the totem degrades very low delves of power and endurance right now. It's pretty much only useful in keep sieges, and even then it's not quite powerful enough to really matter. So we're going to up the endurance drain from 20% to 50% and power from 10% to 25%. And those values will drain the current endurance and power values of the target, not their max values. So if you have 100%, it'll drain down to 75, and then if you have 75, it'll drain 25% of that, and then so on and so on and so on. The second thing is we're going to change the Bone Army Commander to be level 50 instead of level 40. It's going to be yellow, so it's going to be level 50. It's going to be a level 50 monster pet, and it's going to allow you to cast up to 6 sub pets. So 7 total pets up for the Bone Army BD, who only has really a dot and AoE dot for damage and a baseline Dark Nuke. And you have to be 50 spec Bone Army to get that. And then the other kind of main balance things is just there's been a lot of feedback about battlegrounds and Bone Dancers. So we're going to remove charge from all of the baseline commanders, and then we're going to add a new baseline commander at 40 that will have charge. So that the BGs don't have these charge commanders running around, and then the Bone Army melee pets will also lose charge, so they can be CC'd.
Yeah, I like that change a lot. A lot of people have. There's been quite a bit of whine about BDs in Battlegrounds, and I can 100% see why after playing one for like a week.
And the last thing with the BABD commander is that he will allow the 6 BD pets to not assist. But only that commander. So Dark Sub.
Oh, the split assist is coming back?
Just for BA BDs, yes.
Nice. I like that.
All right, Sork Cab. Just some minor changes here. We're going to look at giving them a baseline matter DD. It'll either be heat damage or matter damage. We're not really sure yet, but that'll give some more synergy for the sorcerer, for the non-mind spec sorcerer to debuff for like wizards and Kabbalists and possibly Thurgifs or heretics, depending on if we do heat or matter. And then a kind of like looking at group utility buffs for the cab that tie into their pet reclaimability. Like you can reclaim the pet for power right now, but maybe we give them some more reclaim types that do like group buffs. We're still kind of discussing what those would be. One of the problems brought up in the cab podcast specifically was that in the common alb group setup, the Kabbalist is the main DPS, and so you can just kind of stick it and nullify the outgroup's DPS. So we want to address that partially by giving the cab some boost like the group buffs, but also providing more synergy, which is what the baseline matter does, so that other casters can fulfill that damage role in common alb setups.
So John, not to get off topic, but you mentioned the class podcast. Is it safe to say that you listen to all of those?
Oh yeah. Did you have a specific question about one or what?
No, I just know people were wondering where these changes are coming from, and you just mentioned the podcast specifically.
Yeah, so like the podcasts themselves were very valuable. We've thought about a lot of these changes for a while. Like I said, we haven't done a class balance change in years, but we've never stopped thinking about class balance because it's very important. We wanted to let RVR set. So the class balance podcasts were A, to find some really good nuggets of ideas, and then B, to see what the kind of meta perspective was on the game. And I think the podcasts ran the gamut pretty much, which really is what we expected. We didn't really think we were going to find a consensus across all the podcasts on everything, class balance wise, but it just offered unique perspectives for us to go and riff off of.
Cool. I mean, I like how a lot of these changes are focused on increased synergy among groups. I mean, I think that's a huge thing. Far too often we see sort of the same 4 to 5 classes just running over and over again in every 8-man. I think bringing new classes into the fold, or not new, but I mean, bringing non-meta classes into the fold is something that's really important. Make sure everybody's, equally represented, and at the same time keeping that uniqueness, between the 3 realms. So I like what I'm hearing so far.
Awesome, thanks. Light tanks, that's another big change. So we're going to actually shift light tanks into kind of a stance style of gameplay. They're going to be switching these, but they're probably going to be keeping one for certain situations and another for other situations, kind of a thing. So we'll have a normal stance that will give them and these stances will be controlled by offensive procs, since you can only have one offensive proc up at a time, just like assassin poisons. The first offensive proc will be the normal one, which will be pretty basic. It's just going to be a straight buff to accuracy. So you just hit a class, you get an accuracy buff, and it'll just be part of your class ability. The second stance is going to be an interrupt type stance. One of the issues we identified with light tanks specifically, and when I say light tanks, I'm including savages, just because they really just function just like a light tank. They have debt, they have stoicism, they have charge. So savage, berserker, blade master, and mercenary are the 4 light tanks. Their problem is that they're not doing enough damage in groups because they have to run these pet proc weapons, and they just run around and they pet proc. Which is fine, but we don't want that to be like the only role that they have. We want them to be able to do damage, and so we have two different stances that address that. The first is the interrupt stance, which will give them an offensive proc that will give them a chance to proc pets with their attacks, so they don't have to run pet proc weapons or swap weapons. But it will be tied to a damage debuff, so that they do less damage in that stance, and it will be tied to a damage taken increase, so they will take more damage when they're in that stance, but they will also get a movement speed increase that works through combat. It won't be a huge movement speed increase, it'll be less than charge for sure, but they will get a movement speed increase of some sort, so they can run around faster, interrupt, but not do damage, and they can die faster. Then in the last stance is the sturdy slash burst damage stance, where they'll get an offensive proc that will debuff a random armor, so it's the armor wither, so that synergizes with the new assassins or vamps or basically any melee class, because any melee class can hit any armor slot at any time. So they'll get that, and that will be linked with a small to medium damage increase buff, a small to medium damage taken decrease, so they will take less damage in this stance, a pretty large, those are the two definites, and then a movement snare is the third definite, so they will not be able to move as fast in that stance. And again, we're strongly considering removing snare styles from melee DPS classes, so that if they go into that stance, it's only going to be valid while the target is disabled. So they'll keep their side stun or whatever, but to pop into that stance for 5 seconds maybe isn't enough time for them to kill it anyway. That kind of thing. And then we're also thinking about giving it a large quickness debuff and a blade turn bypass during the duration, so that they swing slower, but they will always land their hits.
So I just have one piece of feedback about that really quick. I know you said you're thinking about removing snares from melee DPS classes. I would say probably not my favorite idea that I've heard. Rear snares, I would agree with. I see what you're going for, and I like it. I think you could remove rear snares and achieve what you're trying to do, but I think you should probably leave a side snare just for certain situations when you need to snare somebody, run away, pop first aid, do whatever. Use a potion, seal, heal back up. I think that completely getting rid of all snares might not necessarily be the best thing. And there's other ways you could go about by just, for example, taking away rear snares. Someone's running away from you, you want to keep up that DPS. Well, too bad, you can't hit him in the back. But if you want to hit him in the side, if you want to strafe around and get that and then gain some distance, you can totally do that. But this is just me theory crafting.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense what you're saying. We could definitely do something like I don't know if I would want to give them even a side positional snare, but we could give them a side positional snare follow-up, so that
or even a reactional snare, or a
reactional snare or something. Exactly. I'm not saying we need to remove all snares from all melee DPS, but I don't specifically think we need to have positional melee snares that let them just keep their target forever snared while they're getting peeled by a peel tank.
Cool. Yep, I like that.
And when I say melee DPS, I mean melee DPS, not every melee.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
Paladin,
not like paladins and
Warden,
stuff. Yep, I got you.
Probably the heavy tanks will keep their snares and be able to perform the peel roll.
I guess when you clarify it with those caveats, I'm starting to like it a lot more.
So yeah, the last point on the light tanks will probably, at least we're thinking about giving them charge as a free ability rather than RA, so that they can more realistically fulfill their role. Again, that gets back to the overall focus of getting melee to their targets, and not necessarily being able to just keep on their target, but they can get there at least and do some stuff without having to stop and cast Seal Disease or whatever. I guess I can go ahead and insert in the Seal Disease will probably have its range nerfed to at least 1,000 radius, if not more.
What kind of recast on the free charge were you guys thinking about? Like charge 5, where it's 90 seconds, or 5 minutes?
It'll probably scale with level, so like
gotcha.
Of level 20 BM will get charge 1 or something like that, and it'll go up to charge 5. Yeah.
Yeah, that was exactly my question.
Maybe it ends up at charge 4 at 50, but something around charge 4, charge 5. I think I just saw in Twitch chat somebody asked about heavy tanks, and that's the next thing. Real quick, Arms Hero we're pretty happy with. Armorsman and Hero classes are solid. I think heavy tanks fulfill a very identified role in RVR right now. They can do damage. They'll still be able to snare most likely, and they have a hard time dying. You know, they're really good at what they do. They can get to their targets, and we're trying to look at other ways to get melee kind of to that state where they're just a solid melee class that people want to group. And if anything, heavy tanks, I don't want to say we're going to nerf them, but they probably need to stay where they are so that the other classes can kind of come up to their level. With the exception of the warrior, I think the warrior's kind of missing a little bit of the flair of the Armorsman and Hero. So we're going to kind of do something similar to the Shadowblade, where we're going to give them throw weapons, similar to the Battlemaster throw weapon, that have snares attached to them, so they can, you know, do a ranged snare effect and maybe other utilities type things.
Sorry, not to backtrack a little bit, but I saw an interesting question in Twitch chat about charge. Afflian wants a confirmation about whether or not charge will still be available to the other non-light tanks that currently have it as a realm ability, like Reavers and DAoCs, or if they're just going to lose that.
Right now, they'll still have it as a realm ability, but not as a.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's basically heavy tanks. Pretty quick. And then champ. We like champs. Champs are a solid class. They've been a solid class for almost the whole game. But they're, in groups at least, not quite able to perform to the level we would like them to perform. So we're looking at kind of tying in buffs to the debuffs. So like you straight con debuff your target, and the next blade turn pulse gets dispelled from your target. And that's every time the straight con debuff fires on a target. So if you fire it on a caster, it's going to dispel their current blade turn. So you'll land that one hit, that next hit, but the next pulse will still take effect. The next quick debuff may be tied in with a 5 to 10% magic buff. And these buffs will last basically 20 seconds for the cooldown of the debuff. And the magic resist debuff would be secondary magic, so like AOM. It'd only be like 5 or 10%. Haste debuff would have a 2.5% melee crit buff chance. So you pop the haste debuff and you just have a slightly bigger chance to crit on your melee. And then the acuity debuff will be linked with a power heal, so that champs don't have to run around with greater power Mytherians just to be effective. And then we're also looking at giving them a PBAOE group buff around the champ that will change the damage type of the champion and the people affected by it to energy or body. I'm not sure if we're going to do energy or body. Most of the champ stuff is body, but energy might make more sense. That debuffs energy by 10% on the target, or applies a proc that debuffs energy to the champ by 10% so that their damage actually does increase. And then, yeah, change the damage type to energy for everybody else around them. And then change the champ spell DD to energy as well if we do energy, or leave it as body and change the damage type to body. And then again, most likely removing the positional snares from champ, but leaving pen. Reaver, kind of similar to the champ. In certain regards, at least the acuity debuff will also power heal, and the same thing can be said for Scald, because these are hybrid melee classes, and we don't want them having to run, you know, a power myth just to be able to use their instant abilities. So we'll tie a power heal to the acuity debuff. We'll keep their 3 instas. We'll change the dot insta to a DD so that it doesn't break CC and makes them a little bit more effective in groups. Again, melee positional snares will probably be removed. We'll keep the pulsing PBAOE DD, but we're going to remove the rest of their pulse abilities, just because it's one of those, another example of the inactive gameplay. You just put up the pulse and you forget about it. We'll leave them with 1, but they don't really need more than 1. And then it also eliminates the need to macro twist or anything like that. And then we're looking at giving them kind of bigger radius, 20-second, 30-second duration, not pulses, but just effects that are, 700 radius interrupts basically, kind of like multiple Banelord interrupt type things. So that you'll have like the 15% absorb debuff will be moved to that kind of a role, a bigger hitting DD, Spirit DD, and then a like 100 200 damage type thing, and then the damage debuff, the melee damage debuff that they already get as the pulse will be moved to that. And then lastly, a smaller radius than the Warlord Pet Scare, but a PBAOE Pet Scare as well. And those interrupt casts will be on like a 2 to 3 minute cooldown. So hopefully that gets them more into groups where they can interrupt and maybe take the role of a minstrel interrupting, or do some consistent damage along with the Merc. We're also looking at their styles, that they aren't quite as good as the Merc's damage, but are pretty effective in groups. I know right now that they're much more effective solo than they are in groups, so we'd like to address that with their damage as well. The Heretic, we're looking at giving them a traditional just 179 delve baseline DD. It'll either be heat or matter, depending on probably whatever damage type we give the Sork and Cab will be the same for the Heretic, and that gives them just a little bit more synergy with those two classes. And this is, I'm going to run through a couple things kind of quickly, but these are ideas that we have, but it's not limited to these ideas, and there's options for more ideas. It's option. These are not as set in stone as some of the other ideas we've talked about. Scald Paladin Warden. We want to kind of, again, refocusing on passive abilities and chants and macro twisting and all that kind of stuff. We want to kind of get away from that and make a kind of a sweeping change to pulses and chants in general, where right now certain classes can have 2, certain classes can have 1, and certain classes can have none. We're just going to make all classes be able to have, a lot, like 8. And so you don't have to worry about twisting. You just get everything up, and then we'll rebalance the existing ones so that they make sense, change ones that don't make sense to not be pulses, and make them more short duration buffs, like everything else we've been talking about. Which brings us to Minstrel, because Minstrel gets the Flute Mez, and they get the Pet Charm. So making that super easy would probably be a little too powerful, so we'd probably have to have the duration of the Flute Mez, if not do other things. We actually like the way the Pet Charm works. It's a mechanic that's intended. If we got rid of the Pet Charm, I don't think Minstrels would get groups. Same thing with the Mentalist. So we're going to work around that. Maybe one day, maybe there's an opportunity somewhere in Midgard to give something like that to them. So in addition to that, Minstrels, Scalds, and Bards, as speed classes, have kind of been not ignored by the mount changes, but they have lost a little bit of their role. I think for the most part, when you get down to groups, you still want to group a Minstrel, you still want to group a Bard. You maybe don't group Scalds in Midgard as much for different reasons, but in large-scale fights you certainly do for the speed. However, they could be better. One of the things from the RVR podcast was Speed Warp. I don't want to get rid of Speed Warp. I think that would be bad for the game at this point. But we can definitely give the speed classes ways to maybe get around or ignore Speed Warps for a shorter duration time. So again, short duration buff on a cooldown, but it could either be single target or group target that lets the speed work through the speed warp for a short duration. And then maybe also even speed buffs that ignore combat, kind of similar to the light tanks on single target classes. So they can, as a speed class, you can throw out speed buffs to your group mates. That's not to say that like the Scald's going to play like a Minstrel, or the Scald's going to play like a Bard, or the Minstrel's going to play like a Bard. There's going to be very different classes, but since they are all speed, they will get something like that.
Yeah, I like the idea of dishing out speed to your group mates and stuff at critical moments. I mean, I think that's a really good workaround for keeping horse speed, which I think really helps the solo game, and also keeping speed classes relevant in groups. I think that's sweet.
Awesome. Yeah, and just to let everybody know, we're about an hour and I think 20 minutes in, maybe an hour and 15 minutes in, since we started a little bit later. And we're almost done with the class balance section, so probably only have another 40 minutes left, I'd say, if that. Just a quick update on that. If anybody wants to, if we want to maybe take a break and stop and ask some Twitch chat questions and see what they think about certain classes, I can do that right now, since we're at kind of a midpoint. Or I can power through the rest of the classes, because it's not much.
Yeah, if we want to finish all the class balance stuff, and then we can take some questions after that. I think that might be a cleaner way of doing it.
All right, let's do that. All right, next on my list is the Necromancer. I know this is a class that absolutely needs some help. I think the problem with it is that we don't have the resources to do what we need to do for the Necro dispatch, because if we did want to do the Necro, it would be just a Necro. So we're not going to do a major revamp of the Necro. We're going to look at maybe some tweaks. I think Albion as a realm is hurting on PBAOE and keep sieges. They don't have as many classes that can do PBAOE, and specifically both Midgard and Hibernia have uninterruptible PBAOE they can use on certain classes. And so I think maybe as a tweak to the Necro to see if this helps to give them a shade casted PBAOE that they can just cast on their pet, kind of like a Verdant Animist. Except obviously it would be uninterruptible because the shade can't be interrupted. And that would mean that their pet has to stand in the middle of other PBAOE, and Necro pets are weak to spell damage, so there's a balance there. That's one idea. And then maybe looking at tweaks to kind of change the binary nature of Necros, where the way buffs work on pets is they make them very, very, very invulnerable to melee, but they're still very weak to casts. So maybe we look at changing some of the pets to be the reverse, like the CC invulnerable pets should maybe be weaker to melee and better against spells, or weaker to both, and then kind of just changing those pets up the line to have just different bonuses, so that the CC immune Necros are just the only Necro pet that you go. Valkyrie. We don't have a lot of things set in stone for the Valk yet. We think it's in a pretty good spot. We definitely want to look at Odin's Will to make it kind of more of a choice versus mending. Also looking at possibly giving Battlemaster ML spec to Valks over Stormlord. Thane. We're still discussing some stuff. Maybe some similar stuff to how the champs work with the damage type switch for Thanes. Veilwalker, more style utility, possibly an instant single target disease interrupt. Vamp, we're considering giving them debt based on all the other changes. I think that might make sense now, and then looking at clearing out some of the unused abilities or ones that are just a little off from the class. Don't have anything really to flesh out for you right now with that. And then the remaining classes are just 8 of them: Spiritmaster, Mentalist, Enchanter, Eldritch, Wizard, Thurgist, Thane, and Mauler. We're just not ready to discuss yet. We're still working through them. We have some ideas on the table for the Thurge and the Sorcerer that I think are probably a little too much, so we're going to have to walk those back and think about some other stuff, go back to the drawing board there. But the rest of those classes are actually really balanced, so not a ton is planned for them anyway. So yeah, that's the classes.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot I like in there. There's also a good bit that I don't like. Kat is raising an interesting point in chat, that she kind of feels that that's not really enough to be done for Scalds, and I have to say that's a hard agree from me. You know, I like the suggestion you made, but I don't quite think it's enough. Like, I don't think it's going to put an end to the practice of, you know, sidecarring a Scald and just 9-manning, which I think is really correct. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's something I agree on. I actually didn't read all the notes for that, so that's my bad. We're looking for the Scald, giving them maybe shield spec, probably debt, and then possibly keeping their melee stairs, but possibly not as well. So that the Scald can, perform some different functions than it does now in groups. And then there's probably other things we could give them as well. That's just what we have kind of on the board right now.
So John, is it safe to say for the classes you haven't discussed that there are going to be changes similar to what we've seen for these other classes?
Possibly. I don't want to say yes, but possibly. I mean, the vein of focusing on getting rid of passive kind of provided buffs and replacing them with short duration buffs or debuffs or whatever is definitely a theme that I think we could continue, especially with the Mauler class and the Thane maybe. But a lot of those classes are also really balanced, so I don't know if I should say you should expect much.
You talked briefly about the changes to chants and allowing maybe classes to use more at once. Are you talking just those three or all classes in general?
All classes. So we can put up an item chant now, and right now actually Shaman's last patch got fixed so that they could have their endurance chant up in addition to their realm rank 5. All of those kind of things would just be swept away. So like a bard could put up a power, endurance, and speed. We'll probably have to look at removing the resistance buffs from Scald and Bard and Paladin to do that, but yeah, every class.
Sweet.
I have a I'm another thing I'm a little bit worried about as far as messing with chance goes, and I really think it's probably just because the idea is not fully fleshed out in its final form. But I think messing with chance too much, and again, this might just be because I don't have all the information, but it seems to me that messing with chance is not that good of an idea. I like the way they are now. I don't think they're particularly unbalanced. I don't think it's a broken system. Like anything, there's room for improvement, right? But I'm concerned about whether or not classes like Paladin, if they lose power on their chance in order to be able to run more than one, if they're going to suffer from that.
Yeah, well, in conjunction with like specifically the Paladin and the Scald and the Warden and the classes that have a lot of chance, we're going to have to take away some of those chance and make them different types of abilities. I don't think any system that has most of the classes, most of the people that run a Paladin using a macro program to run it is a good system. So we want to get away from that. It doesn't mean that they're going to lose all their chance, but maybe their chance all work like the endurance buff and don't provide the exact same bonus. Like maybe they don't get the AF chant and the melee ablative chant or spell ablative chant in conjunction, so they get one on a timer that they can pop every once in a while, but they don't get it all the time. And maybe it doesn't affect them; it affects their group only.
Okay. And I have a question from Emeridora here as well. He says, weapon skill and offhand mechanics on stealthers. Any comments on that? Any proposed changes as far as those go? Or is the system as is, pretty much going to stay like that?
Yeah, for now it's going to stay as is. We'll see. I mean, that's definitely a follow-up type thing we could address. If they're in a group and they're fighting a bunch of classes that they can't hit because their weapon skill isn't high enough or their damage isn't high enough, then maybe we look at that. But I would rather look at the styles themselves and make them useful and powerful that way, and see how they work that way rather than changing the lever of weapon skill.
Cool. The only other thing I have written down here was that some people in Twitch chat and myself as well were concerned with the things you mentioned at the beginning, these sort of like small cooldown abilities that will give you temporary buffs and things like that. And I think a lot of people are worried about the game becoming too similar to WoW in like the 2-minute timer dump, and then your character's useless until you have it again, and then 2-minute timer dump, and then your character's useless until you have it again, and I wanted to sort of see if you could put people's minds at ease on that point.
Yeah, I mean the classes are still going to have their base use stuff that they have now. So they're going to have like a shaman, for instance, right? That's the big change class with in terms of giving them short duration buffs, right? So they have the damage add and the focus shell they can put up, but they can only put it up every 60 seconds. However, they can still AoE disease, and they can still rebuff, and they can still heal, and they can still do all the things that they can do now. They just can't do that extra thing.
Okay, cool. Just as long as it's not so much power in these buffs that your class is useless by comparison when it's not up, then I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, and that's where feedback's gonna come in, and tweaking and iterating and all that stuff after it hits Pendragon.
Oh yeah, on that note, hey, bottom line shout out that I want to give to everybody who's watching right now is testing is very much appreciated when changes go to Pendragon. So to all the people out there that are concerned and all the people out there that are really excited, come help us test on Pendragon, because that's when all the the meat of the changes are going to be done. That's where most of it's going to take place. So the more people we have testing, the better everything is going to turn out. So please, please, please help us out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't say that enough. Actually, I just saw a question in Twitch I wanted to address about stealthers and the way the poisons will work with multiples. If you're fighting a multiples as a stealther and you have the Envenom procs up, you can put the Envenom procs every swing on different targets. You just can't reapply the same proc to the same target. So just because you have a buff up and you use it on one target doesn't mean the buff goes away. You have that buff, and you can swap targets and put it on everybody if you want. For the reverse, if you have multiple stealthers on you, no, you cannot put up 4 dots with your 2 dot procs from the 2 assassins. You can only put up 1 on the target between you two.
And well, I gotta say I'm one of the people that's super excited about these changes. I've heard a lot of stuff that I really like. I'm liking the stealth focus changes. I like the way peel tanks are getting reintroduced. I'm loving the changes to Animus, Banshees, and casters as far as group synergy goes. I love that we're doing something about speed classes, keeping them relevant. I love that we're doing something about buffing classes, keeping them relevant. I think overall there's a lot of really, really, really good stuff here. And the 1 or 2 changes that people are might or might not be freaking out about, there's a good chance they're probably not even going to make it to Pendragon. But in theory, I love a lot of what has been said. I'm very excited for this patch, so thank you again.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I mean, we're really, really excited about showing off all the changes, hitting the patch notes, hitting the airwaves, and seeing the reactions and seeing the testing results and the feedback and all that from it. We love that stuff. I think this will help take the game forward. The game's got to evolve. Can't let it be what it's been for forever. I know a lot of players might want to just be exactly as it's been, but the game has to improve, has to evolve, and change. And so this is an effort to do that, and an effort to kind of return, again, the realms to being unique again, to return the game more towards class abilities rather than item abilities or templates and that kind of sort of thing. And then, yeah, we want to make the game active. There's a lot of classes out there that are literally grouped because they provide a passive buff, and we don't think that that's fun for that class. So we're really excited to see what you guys think.
Do you have any time frame on when you guys are planning on bringing this to Pendragon?
Sooner than you would think. That's all I can say. Not next week, but sooner than you think. So yeah, you guys, we can talk about kind of what else we're going to do with 1.121. I know the class balance is 95% of the things, but we have a couple other changes that we're pretty excited about. We're going to introduce a new system around the coastal keeps, the 6 coastal keeps. So that's Sursbrook, Erisley, and Albion, and see if I can do this by memory. Dunbolg and Dublin in Hibernia, and Lidscalf and Blindrake in Midgard. Those 6 keeps will have resources that spawn around the keeps now. Those resources will drop in a crate, and they'll have like wood for repairs. They'll drop keep supply chest keys, and they'll have a chance to drop otherworldly essence and otherworldly ore materials. First, this is just the first phase of that. The drop rates and the amount of the resources will vary based on the level of the keep, and only the owner of the keep, only the realm that owns the keep, will be able to gather them. So it's a good thing to do. If you own the keep in Albion and at Erisley, you still have to run out to Erisley. You can't port there. So it's a way to get some action going, small man action or group action, and also to kind of set the stage for some other ideas we have regarding repairs and siege and how that all works. Those changes may or may not make it into this patch, the second thing I'm talking about, but we wanted to set the stage with these resources for that. So yeah, continuing with that, we have also some crafting improvements for this patch. We're going to increase the speed on all crafting, so like alchemy specifically, and all of the subcrafts like metal crafting, clothworking, etc. will start off at the low end at 4 seconds for the lowest stuff to craft, and then at the high end it'll take 9.5 seconds. So that's a fairly significant increase. For the main crafts like armor crafting, fletching, weapon crafting, spell crafting will start at 4 seconds, and at the high end they'll go to 23 seconds. And I think currently the high end right now is 60 seconds. These times are without any sort of crafting bonuses, so it'll be even faster when you factor in crafting bonuses in capital cities and housing and the like, and the Rendvik crafting hats. And so yeah, so those are pretty much the two other changes besides class balance that we're putting into 1.121, which segues perfectly into kind of our feedback for the RVR podcast. That was one of the best podcasts we've ever had. It was awesome. Thank you guys for participating in it and replying to it with the whole player base with your feedback for it. It was really, really well done. A few things that came out of that. I'll talk about the short-term kind of plan that I think there was a lot of consensus on. We're going to try to get as many of these into 1.121 as we can, but it's probably looking unlikely that they'll all or any of them will make it in. But there will be, first on the docket for 1.122 in the fall. That'll be removing realm points for taking keeps, increasing drastically the RPs you get for defense, changing it so that siege will no longer work on center keeps that are at 0%. So if you're inside of the center keep and somebody treads it down to 0, it's just going to be broken, but you won't get hit while you're inside. We will be preventing the teleportation or recalling out, of keeps that are under siege or towers. So you can't hole up in the CK, let the door get to 0, and then group gate out or scroll of recall out. And then we'll be looking at changing some siege damage mechanics and specifically increasing oil damage.
Yep, I love that. I love everything about that.
The long-term plan, and this is something that the podcast definitely changed our plan on. We were really going to look at some layout changes and Otherworld Chapter 10 improvements and stuff first, but I think the podcast really showed that we need to really take some time and look at getting realm loyalty back into the game and making the relics important again. And so realm loyalty bonus system will be coming. Probably not on 1.122 because it's a fairly massive system, and we have a lot of other things on the 1.22 docket. And it'll probably go into next year before it's in. But that'll be our focus, kind of going long term for RVR. And then in tandem with that will be improving relics and how relics are taken, why to take relics, and just kind of making the in-game desired again. And then also we'll be looking at some layout tower port changes along with that stuff, or maybe after that stuff is in, as well as some otherworldly Chapter 10 improvements.
Cool. I mean, these are quality of life changes, I think, and I'm always about that.
Yeah, I mean, our overall vision for RVR is to just, have avenues for all players' playstyles, but really we want the game to point towards relics and keep sieges and the end game to be important again. And so I think the podcast hit the nail on the head when they started talking about realm loyalty being important and intrinsic to that, and I think relic incentives are also just half of that issue. So
Yeah,
like, when we do
I mean, yeah.
Go
The
ahead.
player base is pretty on board with a lot of those changes.
Yeah, we were happy that podcast went so well and that we got that great feedback, and it was so much consensus behind it, because we think that that's just a complete home run to do that. And then also, oh, did I cut out there? Sorry.
Yep.
We'll also want to, in conjunction with like going towards the end game, we'll want to look at some of the layouts and stuff like that, and do the minor tweaks and stuff on EV. But yeah, I mean, I think that podcast really hit the nail on the head, and so we'll have this realm loyalty system, and I mean, we haven't fleshed it out completely, but I think it's going to be controlled by RVR kills. So we don't want to introduce a system that feels punishing towards players that do like playing all three realms when they have houses on all three realms, or even players that like playing one realm but they have houses on all three realms, so they can log in, on the PvE side, or log in even in the RVR side, but as soon as they log out, or as long as they don't kill anybody on that realm, they're fine. That kind of stuff. So we want to do it sensibly, but we do think it's extremely important to the health of the game. All right, so I think I can keep going. 1.122 is our 15-year anniversary patch. Camelot is turning 15 this year, which is crazy to think about. They can, get their learners. We can get our learner's permit, and yeah, it's awesome. I mean, this game's been a fantastic game for a long time, and we hope to continue that. We couldn't be more excited about it. So we have a 15-year anniversary illustration in the works, which as soon as we have some teasers for that, we will be able to show off. We're working towards a website release around that time. It'll probably be a little bit after the exact anniversary date, but we're still working on the website. And then we'll have an RVR tournament like we did a couple years ago with the statues as a reward, and maybe we'll have some different goals this year instead of just most kills and most solo kills or something like that. So those are kind of the anniversary themed events. And then we're going to have this 1.122 patch, which first of all will address any class balance stuff that comes up, as well as getting the short-term RVR plans I mentioned a little bit ago into that patch. And then the second thing, it's going to be a major housing update. We're going to introduce a 5th tier of houses. We're going to reskin the existing tiers, and we're going to, all the choices you get along with those tiers. And then we're going to make new art for the new tier, which will probably mean we'll have to re-enable rent, just FYI. And then we're going to look at improving and fixing housing features, like your consignment merchant has too much money. We're going to fix that bug and have a solution where the CM gets delisted if that's the case. We're going to be improving Market Explorer. Well, we're going to be looking at improving either Market Explorer search filters or possibly doing enabling cross-server purchasing. It's probably going to be one of the two. But we're going to be looking at the housing features that we can get in. We would love to do mail. I don't think that's going to make it, but maybe it will. And then we're going to look at fixing a lot of the items in inventory that are not able to be vaulted in your house vault. And they should be. And then, of course, more housing trophies, more choices like that. And then the big thing with that 5th house tier is we're going to have more inventory space.
Awesome.
Where's Larry, and is he tuning in?
John, you briefly mentioned the website. Is there anything specific you want to share about that now, or
Yeah, this is
not?
the perfect time. Yeah, that's next on my list anyway. So if there's, I mean, if we can do questions about the 1.22 patch and housing, but it's pretty much just housing is getting improved. We'll have more details, as we go on and after 1.121. But yeah, the website is getting worked on this summer, and so Carol actually has some screenshots for you guys to show the main five new pages we can show you, or I think it's 3 new ones and 2 existing ones you guys might have seen in the previous newsletters. So Carol, if you want to bring those screenshots up,
Sure. Which one do you want to start
we
with?
can. Let's start with the homepage. We can talk through it.
Okay, that should be up.
Yeah, so there's the homepage. Can you zoom in at all on the top portion of it?
I like that artwork. Who did that?
That was the Otherworldly campaign illustration we had commissioned for last year's Otherworldly campaign event. There's an artist out in Australia called Damien Aldino. So you can see at the top, we're going to kind of change the layout of the website. We're getting away from drop-down menus and confusing navigation systems, and we're going to just have basically 4 major landing pages. So at the very top, you can see there's a community button, there's a guide button, there's a media button, and then there's a realm war button. And those 4 sections are going to take you kind of to, the guide section is going to take you to all of the guide links, so you can find everything very easily and very in your face when you need it, rather than having to hunt and peck through, all the drop-down menus. Right below the menu bar, you can see the new upcoming events and contests thing that we're going to do. So this is going to be like, the splash screen will be whatever the major update is of the game. So like when the screenshot was taken, it was Otherworld campaign. But it'll be like patch 1.121 next, and we'll get some art that goes behind it that makes the website look nice and pretty. And then the major thing is that right side of it with the upcoming events and contests, where you'll see all of the planned, bonus week and battleground event coming up and Harbinger of Spring coming and all that kind of stuff will just be kind of ahead of time. It'll probably be like a 1 or 2 month lead time. Obviously some things we want to surprise you guys with, like maybe the merchant event, maybe some RBR bonuses, but for the most part we want to give you guys much better transparent information about what's upcoming with the game in terms of live events and holiday events. And then below that, you just have the the latest news section, which is the same as the existing Herald. So let's click on the game guide link, and we'll go to the guide page. Carol, if you can. So yeah, you guys can see the guide page now, I think. Sorry if there's a little delay here. I'm going off the Twitch stream. So we'll have 3 big buttons at the top: new player guide, returning player guide, patch notes that list they'll take you to the new player guide, the returning player's guide. But it'll just be kind of a compendium or a table of contents of all the various guides, video guides, all that kind of stuff. So we'll have like races, classes, trade skills, realm versus realm, all that kind of stuff for guides. So that'll be a useful page to just kind of new players to come visit and see everything. So you can go to the media page guide next.
Yeah, that's going to be so huge for new players.
The community page is going to be like the tool page, so you can go in and use all these tools. Like the character search will be there. We want to get in an item database to the website so that you guys can search for item names and find them, and then it'll list all the stats for that item. And then we'll put that into an exportable format so that players that are so inclined can make a database. And then you guys can make filter searches that let you search for utility or certain stats and that kind of stuff. But we'll just have a database that's just the item name and then all of the stats for that item. And then additionally, we were looking at, you can't see in the screenshot, I don't think, unless you're really squinting, but there's like a spellcrafter calculator, which will just let you do the spellcraft calculations like that on the Old Herald, where you could put in what you're gonna craft, and it'll figure out the gems you need and all that kind of stuff. And then also some other tools as well on the community page that'll be useful. And then it'll also link to leaderboards. So the media page will be another important page where you'll have a nice gameplay video we're working on that'll highlight some aspects of the game and kind of be a marketing video for the game. That'll be at the top of the page, and then we'll have the Twitch streaming embedded below that, link to the previous podcast like this one, our official YouTube channel, and then just traditional media things like wallpapers and galleries and videos and that kind of stuff. And then so the last one is probably the one that most of you guys are most excited about, which is the Realm War pages return, as well as leaderboards. And this is one that we're really excited about. Where you'll be able to find the action online and kind of keep tabs on the Realm War from your office at work or whatever. See where the relics are and all that kind of stuff, just like the Old Herald used to. And then we're going to give back bring back the leaderboard functionality. And this is kind of like just restoring the Old Herald's existing functionality, which is the first step. Maybe eventually we're going to do a lot more with leaderboards, where we'll have something like seasons, and we'll have maybe a general RVR stat that's a better stat than just I remain standing for kind of determining skill. I know it can't be perfect because it's open field RVR, but we'll do something like a seasonal ladder or something like that, where the leaderboard will update every 3 or 4 months or something, and you can see how you're doing compared to everybody else for your class and overall. So yeah, that's the website. The last little bit with the website is we're actually working towards also integrating official forums that require an active game account to post on. Anybody can view them, but you have to have an active game account to post on, so we can start gathering some feedback and maybe a more active player-centric way, as well as tying that into the website, so like comments on the news posts and stuff will go on there. Sorry, Cody, go ahead.
No, I think these are going to be great for helping foster some more realm pride and community, and I think a lot of the Twitch chat saying the same thing. People are pretty excited.
Yeah, we're really excited about the website. I think that's going to help bring players in, and we're still working on the account center update and all that, and we really want that in, but it's a bear, and so we're dealing with that as well, and that'll help bring back players too, I think, and keep players around, making that a lot easier to use, and then making the website functional and useful again.
Clocked is asking about character transfers. I know it's not relevant to what we're talking about, but there was a planned account center update, correct? Is that getting pushed back, or is that?
Yeah, I mean it's still under work. There's a lot of other things that the studio as a whole needs to work on for central ops, central tech, and that kind of falls under that, and so it's been pushed back a little bit. It's unfortunate, but we're still working on it. It'll happen. when it happens, yes, things like character transfers and all of that stuff become, possible.
Cool.
So yeah, that's basically it, guys. Like I've gone through everything in my notes, so I'm gonna make myself available to you guys for probably the next 15-20 minutes of Q&A. Whatever you guys want to ask me in Vent here or the players in Twitch chat, feel free to hammer me with questions, and we'll go wherever you guys want to go.
I've got a question from Amadora here. Well, it's not really a question. He's wondering what we can do as players outside of just testing, but things like keeping players playing. I think if you're not mistaken, you're referring to things like in-game support for new players, Amber, or am I getting that wrong?
Is that what he meant?
Yeah, that's what he meant. Things like that.
Yeah, so specifically for players, it's just, play the game, talk about the game. We might have some ideas. I know we talked about briefly some sort of like community broadsword type guilds that did events. We might revisit that. Right now, we just don't have the resources to really manage that. We'll see. I mean, if you, Amadora, or anybody else specifically has an idea that they want to run by us, by all means, let me, myself, or Carol know, and we'll definitely discuss it.
And then Clocked and a couple other people were also wondering if there's going to be are there any plans for a character builder on the new website?
Yeah, eventually there will be. In conjunction with the item database, which is the first thing we want to get up, we'll want to have a spell and ability database as well, so you can search, spell names and all that stuff and get information on it. And then that will also be in an exportable data format that players can use to make updated character planners themselves. I don't think we'll probably ever do an updated character planner in the what I can see is the midterm or long term. Because there's
John,
already a really good one out there. It just needs an update.
This question's come up a few times now, specifically with respect to charge and new players' inability to see the effects. Is there any chance that could get updated?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Visual effect on charge, I think it was. And other such abilities that have no animation.
So that's actually something we tried to do with this patch. It's going to take a little bit more work. We're not sure if we'll get it in next patch either, but it's basically just kind of a big client update that we need to do. But the ideal situation would be we would actually make it so that things like Mez, refreshes if you're Mez and just standing there. So you know that something is Mez even if they're not moving anymore after the first 10 seconds of the effect. Things like charge, we would definitely like to see effects and messaging to players be done in a better way than they are now. It's just a little bit of work to get there.
Oh, no, okay, never mind. I'm not going to ask that question. Never mind. Oh, here's a good one. Mimphy asks, they spent all this time revamping old PvE content, yet BGs are still the way to level. He feels that BG should be the alternative way to level, not the main way to level. Now, is that what you guys were going for with the dungeon revamps and things like that? But is there any more in the works as far as sort of, rounding that out?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great point too. I mean, the battlegrounds are probably still the best way to level. We probably like it to be riskier to level in the battlegrounds than it is. Not quite as easy to just go in and kill 5 mobs and turn in a quest. It's a little bit boring, I think, too, just in terms of what we want BGRBR to be. So I don't know when this fits on the docket, especially since we're going to be shifting the focus to the realm loyalty bonus stuff and relic incentives. But battleground improvements are on our list. I actually agree with Nymphy's question there. Stance is that maybe the battleground should be an alternative, not the best way. And we can look at other more RVR-centered ways to spice up the battlegrounds. I see a few questions in there about blood seals. We'll think about it, making them tradable. It's one of those things where they're not tradable for a reason, and it's macro groups, and we need to figure out if there's a better way, a better solution. And making them tradable would just bottom out the prices. So we don't know if we want to do that or not. We can discuss it, submit feedback, submit ideas. We'll definitely take those into account.
John, with these class patches that you're proposing, do you see sort of a revitalization of DF and Chapter 15 OW just based off of people trying to play new classes or not?
Do we see that as what now?
Do you think people are going to be spending more time leveling up new tunes for these class patches, or they'll...
Gotcha. Hopefully. I mean, I hope players see a class that we've changed and they go, I really want to play that class. I don't have that class, and they level it up. Yeah, I think the DF stuff. I think your question is really getting at, like, players right now aren't doing it as much because they've already done it and they don't need to do it again, right? So we might have to do some other incentives to that, but I think it gets done a pretty good amount, and you can also buy the weapons. So it's a system that fits into the economy a little bit better than some other systems where it's just a quest, like the other road gear. Yeah, you can trade it, but you also just get it for doing a quest rather than having to do a couple more raids or whatever to get it.
So I've got a question from Teddy. He is asking what kind of testing timeline are we going to be looking at? I mean, because the changes are so extensive, is this patch going to stay on Pendragon longer than the average patch, just to make sure everything is, like, you know, locked down when it goes to live?
What's the fun in that? Maybe. It depends. We need to get the next patch out for the housing and all that stuff for the anniversary. It kind of cramps our schedule a little bit. We would like this to be tested extensively, which is part of why we're kind of announcing a lot of changes like I did today before we even put it on Pendragon. So we can get feedback, iterate a little bit more, and then hopefully deliver a better version to Pendragon. Typically the Pendragon timeframes are 2 weeks. We may be able to push that out, but it's a big maybe.
Okay. So aliens, in case you were not paying attention before, as far as weapon skill changes and offhand spec, for assassins specifically, nothing is going to be changed. John, correct me if I'm wrong here. And the SB RR5, I think the idea is to keep the RR5 and boost the Delve to something that's, you know, actually makes a difference in a fight. So I think
that's right.
Okay.
And just add on, I mean, the assassins are getting more spec points, so that they will have the opportunity to get potentially higher, depending on how they choose to spec. They could get potentially higher weapon spec as well. That said, if they go 50 in Venom to get the highest in Venom, and they go 50 stealth, they'll have pretty comparable melee to what they have now. But the Envenom will be much more powerful and hit a lot harder.
I noticed a lot of questions about stacking and apples and stuff. I mean, do you even want to get into that? Or
yeah, so I
yeah,
posted
like
on the boards about that a little bit, saying that we might look at something like more drastic in a forthcoming patch, but not this patch. However, there is definitely an opportunity, if not this patch, next patch, looking at like dispels or cures, like random dispels, that kind of stuff, where, you know, a cave shaman maybe puts up random ablative dispel on a enemy class. I don't think it's going to be balanced if we just give it to 1v1 classes to just wipe out ablatives. Additionally, a lot of these changes are increases in damage for a lot of classes, so stacking might not be that bad after this patch, and we don't want to really change that lever because survivability and being able to play, not dying in the first 5 seconds of a fight is important for a lot of classes too. So I know like assassins specifically are going to need to kill quickly to be successful, but I think a lot of the changes we are making are going to do that anyway.
Cool. I actually have another question, if you don't mind, from K Barnett here, and it's something I saw echoed before when we were talking about assassins specifically. Is there going to be a point to having plus skill in Envenom or Stealth if the idea is to make you spec to natural 50?
That's a good observation. No, there will not be any reason to have it unless you go less than 50. We're not going to remove the functionality that you can do it. Like your ability to hide in stealth will still be affected by your stealth spec at 50 composite. But that frees up a whole lot of templating options for assassins, not having to do plus 11 stealth and plus 11 envenom in their templates.
I see. So if you want those more powerful abilities in the stealth line, for example, you go all the way to 50. But if you don't want those and you want a better template, more melee damage, maybe higher envenom or whatever it is, the option is still there to have the composite spec.
Exactly.
Cool. Best of both worlds.
John, there's a question on crafting. I know you mentioned it briefly. Are there any is there anything in the works to change the like herb crafting and stuff like that to make it more useful?
Not at this time, no. Maybe in future patches, but not at this time, no. Yeah, so just to clarify the envenom thing, you would need to spec to 50 envenom to get the level 50 envenom ability now. You can't spec to 49 plus 11, or 39 plus 11. Comp stealth will still be useful if you don't want the abilities in stealth, and comp envenom will still be useful. Well, comp envenom will be useful for your damage of the poison, but that's it.
Okay, good. That was actually going to be my next question. Was how is this going to affect the delve damage of the poison? Okay, so great. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, because they're spells, the skill spec will increase the damage of the spell, of the offensive class.
And now will that also apply to going above level 50? So like natural 50 plus, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's actually. I'd have to check. I'm not sure off the top of my head if that has a code clamp or not. So that'll be part of the testing. Yeah.
To answer your question, Hitori1, there will be no resists with the new envenom system. All the poisons will be irresistible, I guess is the word.
Indeed.
Changes to Thunderstorm, Clock is asking.
Full duration. Yeah, Thunderstorm's gonna get nerfed. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and definitely, since I'm seeing a lot of questions here that have been answered, if you guys didn't get to see the first part of this, definitely revisit it. There's a whole lot of content out there that John shared with us.
Yeah, just to give some more information on the Thunderstorm thing specifically too, is I said it earlier, which was we want the assassins to be using crit strike styles. I mean, if they want to, they can use the left axe or whatever styles because they get them, but we want to kind of consolidate them down to really want to use the crit strike styles, which means making the crit strike styles better than the other styles for the most part. And then for rangers, again, we want to make archers more about using the bow, not melee. Ugo Felix just asked about the 20% consignment merchant fee. Again, housing patch, next patch, so that's a perfect time to look at that. Maybe, yeah, it's definitely on the table.
Nordic asking the important questions. Is there a time card giveaway this stream?
Yeah, let's do that now. It's a perfect time for that. Carol, do you wanna do your thing?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's get this set up.
So while she's doing that, let me just address this concern from Lee Stomper in Twitch chat. He says, hang on, let me get the wording here exactly. He says, surely you should promote classes being versatile rather than making classes stick to one spec line. I think that's exactly the idea here. Like when you look at the assassin changes specifically, you know, there's choices between going crit strike, going in venom. I think that's the whole idea. You know, obviously it's going to be different for different archetypes of classes, especially ones that don't have 5 spec lines that they have to put points into in order to be effective. But yeah, like Teddy just said, they should not be pigeonholed, and I think that is kind of the point of a lot of the changes that I've heard of. Anyway, I think we've all been listening to the same podcast.
Yeah, I mean, so like, we're gonna give a side stun for an example, real quick. We'll give a side stun to Pincer and crit strike, right? 4 seconds. It's a low level style, but we're not gonna take away the side stun in left X. So if you spec for the left X stun, you actually get a second on the stun and you can use it. However, for the most players, you're just gonna probably use that crit strike style because it follows up as a follow up to Leaper, which is gonna be doing more damage. That kind of stuff is what we're doing. We're not really trying to make it so that left X is irrelevant. I mean, Thunderstorm is a pretty powerful spell or style, so that we want to change that so that it's just like every other detaunt in the game and not the most powerful anytime style in the game. There are other anytime styles in Celtic Duel you can use if you want to use that.
Okay, we'll have 60 seconds while we do the giveaway, so we can get another couple of questions in there maybe during the time. This is a keyword giveaway. I'll give you a keyword, and I can never think of a good keyword, but I'll think of something. You'll have 60 seconds to say it in chat, and you have to type it exactly. If you do it in capitals or change any of it, you won't count. 60 seconds to type it. After that, I will roll the winner, and then you've got 30 seconds to claim. So it usually goes to about 70 seconds because Twitch does have a delay built in, so we'll take that into consideration. I'm also going to paste that. I have that written down, so I'm going to paste it into chat because sometimes people are like, I can't make out what she said. Okay, I think everyone came up with their own keyword. Okay, so yeah, let's we'll go with that. Not yet, not yet. You're all saying it. So that's okay. Well, at least they're paying attention. Okay, none of those will count until I start it. So I'm gonna start now in a second. Okay, everyone type !devcast in chat. Use 60, say 70 seconds. Go. That was funny. If Inter is here, Inter's not allowed to take part in any more giveaways.
Has he won like more than one?
He's won like 5.
Wow.
Yeah, he is on unreal luck.
Inter makes his own luck.
Okay, I'd say about another 15 seconds. Okay, just about 5 seconds. Okay, stop, and I'm going to roll for the winner now, and that is James Susses. Congrats! I actually tried to say that. Congrats.
Congrats, guys.
That's awesome. James, you're here. James USF. Oh, okay, I get it now. I'm a bit slow.
Carl asking the important questions. Did he claim it?
No, right, okay. Yeah, that's okay. We're nice here. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna do another time code giveaway. So get your exclamation marks ready. And we're gonna do a separate keyword.
Nice.
Yeah, we're nice. I'm not gonna deny someone because they weren't 100% paying attention. So we're okay. We're gonna do another one. So hang on. Let's reset this. And I have a new keyword, and I bet you won't guess it. Okay, new keyword, all one word, exclamation mark, class balance. So go. Boxy, you were the first to say it. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't get it. Uh, just I saw someone bring it up before. If you type it twice, you don't get removed. This comes up every time, so you can. I think you can type it 5 times, and it doesn't matter. But you're only counted once, and you don't get removed. And what is with the? Who's on the monitor? Oh, no S. Matt, if you need to take the S out for the class balance. Okay, about 10 seconds to go. Okay, and stop. Right, so we're gonna roll for this one. Get ready. I really need to get a drum roll sounds like for doing this. Okay, congrats to Scumator. I assume that's how it's pronounced. I should write this down so I remember. Yay, congrats. And you're cool. Do you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do another one. So we're gonna have the third time code giveaway for a 1 month code. Yeah, when John's here, John just says, yeah, go on, do whatever. I'm really mean. I do like one and stop. I'm going back to
We should do.
what I know best. I'm going back to what I know best. Hang on, I'm not done yet.
Oh my god.
Okay, 60 to 70 seconds, exclamation mark DAoC. Everybody type it. Go.
Now it should have been exclamation mark Pally Stoicism 2K16.
I'm sorry you broke up there, Boxy. There's a lot of static.
I said it should have been exclamation mark Pally
No,
Stoicism
no,
2K16.
totally losing you.
No, don't make me say it a third time.
Third time's unlucky. It's like saying Candyman. Pretty much the hardest question for the whole podcast is what keyword should I use? Okay. Stop, obviously. And we're gonna. Oh, hang on, the thing went off. Okay, sorry. Doing the rule. Congrats, Phalanx. For anybody claiming, don't send me any messages just yet, rather. I'll tell you how to claim after this. So, Phalanx, are you here? Yay, congrats. Okay, again, don't send me any messages until the end. I'll tell you how to claim. But I'm not done yet. This is like, did you ever watch Columbo? Where he always just said, just one more question. I think I'm showing my age. Okay, so that was 1 month. So this time we're going to go a little bigger. And I'm going to give away a 3-month time code for DAoC Camera. Yes, but wait, there's more. So this 3-month one, we're going to do our, I would say, probably the most used, most seen emote other than ROFL. And it is exclamation mark Monty. So everybody type exclamation mark Monty for a chance at a 3-month DAoC Camera time code. Free the seals, but a bit of cool one too, actually. But everybody likes the Monterino. There's a nice lot of viewers and interest in the podcast tonight. It was fantastic to see. I think everyone else AFK'd and left me to do the giveaways. So like, yeah, this is going to take about like 10 minutes to do this. About another 22 seconds. Yes, thank you all for coming, joining in, and the chat. It was good fun, and I hope you all enjoyed me dying mercifully in PvE and resisted.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Congrats to the winners. Really had a blast joining you guys, Boxy and Koei, for doing this. Thank you for that. And then thanks for the questions. Yeah. We're very excited to show you guys this badge.
Very excited. Yeah. Okay, everybody stop, and I'm going to roll the winner. The winner of the 3-month DAoC Camera time code is Eleni91. I have really often problems doing pronouncing names, so Eleni91, are you here? Three-month time code is sweet. Yay! Okay, I think that's it. I think I'm done with time codes. Am I done with time codes? No, I don't think I have a 6-month one. I'm sorry.
I think you should do a lifetime account time code giveaway.
Sorry, Boxy, you broke up there. There's a lot of static on the line.
Oh no.
Okay, awesome. Everyone who won, to James, Gamatar, Eleni, and Flanix, send me private message on Twitch, not a whisper, a private message to my profile on Yay I'll link it in the chat. And under my profile, there is a button, drop down to send message. Or if you're going to do a whisper, just do the whisper. But yeah, private message, if you can. Okay, link in chat. If you go to my profile on my page, under where you would normally see the video, there's a settings icon, and under that is send message, so you can use that. Okay, are we done?
I think so.
That's great. Yeah, I think somebody said it. I had to do the hard work.
Yeah, Daredant, well said. Well said. Great job. Now everyone to post count to QQ about changes. That's good fun.
Yeah, it's meant this will be exported to YouTube. I'm pretty much do it almost straight after. But it will take about 5 hours or so to get onto YouTube because it's so long. But by tomorrow morning it should be there anyway. We'll try and get some highlights and points written up, and we'll get them translated into German. I think Shelley is here somewhere in the chat, and French. So we'll get them up hopefully early next week. Okay, yeah, thanks everyone for watching. It was great chat as well, and you'll hear a lot more from us yet to come.